Sarah Chen stood in front of the massive circular chamber, looking up at hundreds of alien faces staring down at her. The Galactic Council building was huge, with seats rising up like a stadium. Each seat held a different species from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking crystals, and some she couldn't even describe. She had been Earth's main representative for 3 years now. 3 long, frustrating years of being treated like a child in a room full of adults. Every time humans tried to speak, the other species would either ignore them or laugh. They called humans the new species, even though Earth had been part of the galaxy for 50 years. Today was different, though. Today, Sarah was angry. The meeting had started like all the others. Chancellor Vextar, a tall blue creature with 4 arms, had called the session to order. His species, the Dominion, had been in space for over 10,000 years. They thought this made them better than everyone else, especially humans. Today we discuss the mining rights for the Kepler 442 system, Vextar announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. Sarah's heart sank. Kepler 442 was where humans had built 3 colonies over the past 20 years. Over 2 million people lived there now. They had farms, schools, and families. It was home. The Hegemony Mining Corporation has requested access to mine the rare metals in this system, Vextar continued. The profits will help fund our expansion into new territories. A creature that looked like a walking tree stood up. This was Speaker Thornbark from the Hegemony. The mining operation will require the entire system, he said in a voice like creaking wood. Any existing settlements will need to be moved. Sarah shot to her feet. You can't be serious. Those are human colonies. People live there. The chamber filled with clicking, buzzing, and chirping sounds. The aliens were laughing. Ambassador Chen, said a crystal creature called Vorthak Prime 7, your species has only been in space for a few hundred years. You cannot expect to claim entire systems when older, more deserving races need those resources. More deserving? Sarah's voice got louder. We built those colonies with our own hands. We turned dead rocks into living worlds. And now those worlds can serve a better purpose, Vextar said with a wave of his hand. The motion is called to vote. All in favor of granting the Hegemony full mining rights to the Kepler 442 system. Hundreds of alien hands, claws, and tentacles rose into the air. Sarah looked around desperately, counting the votes against them. A few smaller species kept their limbs down, but not nearly enough. Motion passed, Vextar announced. The human colonies have 60 days to evacuate. This is insane, Sarah shouted. You didn't even let us argue our case. A snake-like alien called Hiss Speaker Salen slithered forward. Your case? What case could primitives possibly make? Your species still fights wars with chemical explosives. You have barely left your own solar system. What wisdom could you offer beings who have ruled the stars since before your planet cooled? The laughter got louder. Sarah felt her face getting hot with anger and shame. She looked around the chamber one more time, seeing the mocking faces, the dismissive gestures, the complete lack of respect for her people. Furthermore, Vextar continued, the Council has decided that human voting rights should be reviewed. Perhaps full membership was granted too hastily to such a young species. That was the final straw. Sarah had spent 3 years trying to work within their system, 3 years of being polite while they insulted her people, 3 years of watching them ignore human ideas that could help everyone, 3 years of being treated like a pet that had learned to talk. She pulled out her communication device and sent a quick message to Earth. Then she looked up at the Council one more time. Chancellor. Vextar, she said, her voice now deadly calm. I have one question for you. Make it quick, human. We have important matters to discuss. Do you really believe the galaxy would be better off without human participation? Vextar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The galaxy existed for millions of years before your species crawled out of its caves. It will exist for millions more after you return to them. I see. Sarah picked up her briefcase and papers. Then you won't mind managing without us. The laughter died down. Some of the aliens looked confused. What do you mean? Asked Prime 7. Sarah looked directly at Vextar. I mean that humanity is officially withdrawing from all galactic affairs. We're done. You cannot just leave, Hiss Speaker Salen said. There are treaties, agreements, obligations. Read the fine print, Sarah replied. Every treaty includes a withdrawal clause if member species face discrimination or threat of genocide. Forcing 2 million people from their homes qualifies as both. She started walking toward the exit. Her small human staff followed behind her, their faces grim but determined. This is foolish, Vextar called after her. You need us more than we need you. Sarah stopped at the massive doors and turned around one last time. The entire chamber was silent now, hundreds of alien eyes focused on her. Do we? She asked. I guess we'll find out, human. Vexstar's voice was angry now. If you leave this chamber, do not expect to return. The galaxy will move forward without you. Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that others would learn too late. Chancellor Vexstar, she said. For 3 years I've listened to you and your allies talk about how primitive humans are, how young we are, how little we contribute to galactic civilization. She paused, looking around the chamber one more time. You know what? You're right about one thing. We are young compared to you. We've only been in space for a few centuries while you've had thousands of years to build your great galactic civilization. The aliens sat quietly, unsure where this was going. But here's what you never bothered to learn about young species, Sarah continued. We adapt fast. We learn quickly, and we don't forget who our friends are. She touched a button on her device. This message is being broadcast to every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy. As of this moment, all human personnel are ordered to return to Sol System immediately. All trade agreements are canceled. All joint projects are suspended. All technical support is terminated. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens were shouting, clicking, and buzzing at each other in panic. You cannot do this. Vexstar screamed. Watch us, Sarah said. You wanted to see what the galaxy looks like without humans? You're about to get your wish. She walked out of the chamber, her staff behind her. As the doors closed, she could hear the chaos growing inside. Aliens were arguing. Some species were already trying to call emergency sessions, and others were demanding that someone stop the humans from leaving. But it was too late. The message was already spreading across the galaxy. Within hours, every human ship would be heading home. Every human engineer would pack up and leave. Every human trader would close up shop. The galaxy had just made the biggest mistake in its history. They were about to learn that sometimes the newest voice in the room is the most important one. And they were about to discover what the galaxy really looked like without the humans who had quietly been holding it all together. Captain Maria Santos watched the last human transport ship disappear into hyperspace, carrying another 1,000 engineers back to Earth. From the bridge of her cargo vessel, she could see the massive space station they were abandoning. New Geneva Station had been humanity's biggest construction project outside the Sol system. Now it sat empty, its lights slowly going dark. That's the last of them, Captain, her communications officer reported. All human personnel have been evacuated from Sector 7. Maria nodded. It had been 2 weeks since Ambassador Chen walked out of the Galactic Council. The evacuation was happening faster than anyone had expected. Humans were packing up and leaving every corner of the galaxy. Set course for Earth, Maria ordered, and activate the lockdown protocols. The lockdown protocols were something most aliens didn't know about. Every piece of human technology had hidden security systems built into it. When activated, the technology would shut down completely. No alien species would be able to use it or even understand how it worked. As Maria's ship jumped to hyperspace, the station behind them went completely dark. Its advanced life support systems, navigation computers, and communication arrays all turned themselves off. The station was now just a floating piece of metal. This scene was happening all across the galaxy. On the trade world of Nexus Prime, human merchants were closing their shops and heading home. The Nexus marketplace had depended on human trading networks to connect different parts of the galaxy. Without them, alien traders were struggling to find buyers for their goods. Commander Chen Wei was pulling the last human patrol ships out of the frontier zone. This region of space had been wild and dangerous until humans started patrolling it 5 years ago. Human ships were fast, well-armed, and most importantly, they never gave up chasing pirates. Sir, his tactical officer said, we're getting distress calls from 17 different merchant ships. They're being attacked by pirate gangs. Are any of them human ships? No, sir. All alien vessels. Chen Wei felt bad for the merchants, but his orders were clear. Continue on course for Earth. We're no longer responsible for galactic security. Behind them, pirates were already moving into the shipping lanes. Word had spread quickly through the criminal networks that human patrols were gone. For the first time in years, pirates could attack merchant ships without worrying about human pursuit. On the industrial world of Metalon 4, Chief Engineer Sarah Kim was shutting down the massive fusion reactors that powered the planet's factories. These reactors were human-designed and built. The alien workers didn't understand how they functioned. "We can't just leave them without power," her assistant protested. "We tried to teach them how to maintain the reactors," Sarah replied sadly. "They said human technology was too primitive for them to bother learning. The reactors powered down one by one. Without them, the factories that produced components for starships would stop working within days. The ripple effects would spread across the galaxy as ship production ground to a halt." In the communications hub on Relay Station Alpha, technician James Park was disconnecting the quantum communication network that linked most of the galaxy. The network used human-developed quantum entanglement technology that allowed instant communication across vast distances. The alien technicians watched nervously as James worked. They had operated the network for years but had never bothered to learn how it actually functioned. To them, it was just another machine that humans maintained. "How long will the network stay operational after you leave?" asked Zixtal, the station's alien supervisor. "Maybe a few hours," James said. "Maybe less. These quantum processors need constant adjustment. Without someone who understands the underlying mathematics, they'll desynchronize and the whole network will crash. But surely we can hire human contractors to—" "No," James interrupted. "Earth has recalled all technical personnel. No exceptions." As James's transport ship departed, the communication network began to fail exactly as he had predicted. Within 6 hours, most of the galaxy had lost the ability to communicate across long distances. Back on Earth, President Rebecca Morgan was meeting with her advisors in the secure briefing room, deep under the Capitol building. Reports were coming in from all over the galaxy as human personnel returned home. "The evacuation is 90% complete," reported Admiral Jackson, head of the space fleet. "All our people should be back in Sol system within the week." "What about our defensive preparations?" President Morgan asked. "The new shield generators are online," Admiral Jackson replied. "Nothing gets in or out of Sol system without our permission. We've also activated the stealth satellites around all major hyperspace routes leading here." Defense Secretary Williams pulled up a holographic display showing the Sol system. A faint blue glow surrounded the entire area, representing the protective barrier that now surrounded Earth and its colonies. "This shield technology is at least 50 years ahead of anything the aliens have," Williams explained. "They won't even be able to detect it, let alone break through it." President Morgan nodded. The shield was based on research that humans had been quietly conducting for decades. The aliens had always assumed that humans were too primitive to develop advanced defensive technology. They were wrong. "Ma'am," said Intelligence Director Hayes, "we're already picking up chatter from alien governments. They're starting to realize that the human withdrawal is affecting their infrastructure." "How bad is it?" "Worse than they expected. The Vorthek Empire is reporting system-wide communication failures. The Hegemony's mining operations are shutting down because their equipment was maintained by human engineers. Even the Dominion is having problems with their transportation networks." President Morgan allowed herself a small smile. For 50 years, humans had been quietly integrating themselves into every aspect of galactic civilization. They had volunteered to maintain equipment, organize supply chains, and patrol dangerous regions of space. The aliens had been happy to let them do the work while treating them as second-class citizens. "Any word from the Galactic Council?" "They're in emergency session," Hayes reported. "Chancellor Vexitar is claiming that human withdrawal is an act of aggression against the galaxy. Some of the smaller species are starting to panic. And our response? We're maintaining communication silence. All diplomatic channels are closed. As far as the galaxy knows, Sol system has gone dark." President Morgan stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the city. She could see construction crews working on new buildings, new factories, new research facilities. With all their people back home, humanity was about to enter a period of rapid development. "How long do you think it will take them to realize the truth?" she asked. Admiral Jackson consulted his reports. "Based on the infrastructure failures we're seeing, I'd say the major effects will be obvious within a month. Complete economic breakdown, maybe 6 months. And how long before they come asking for help? That depends on how proud they are," the Admiral replied. "Could be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. President Morgan nodded. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this. For years, she had tried to work with the galactic community as equals, but the aliens had made their position clear. Humans were too young, too primitive, too unimportant to have a real voice in galactic affairs. Well, Now they would learn just how important humans really were. Outside, a transport ship was landing at the spaceport. It carried another group of returning humans, engineers and technicians who had spent years maintaining alien technology. They looked tired but determined as they walked down the ramp. They were coming home to a humanity that was about to show the galaxy what they were really capable of. The aliens had demanded that humans leave them alone. They were about to get exactly what they asked for. Administrator Kexlar stared at the red warning lights flashing across his control panel. 6 months had passed since the humans left, and Centauri Station was dying. The massive agricultural facility that fed 12 billion people across 3 star systems was running out of power. "Sir," his assistant squeaked nervously, "the fusion reactors are down to 30% capacity. The plant growth chambers are already starting to fail." Kexler slammed his 4-fingered hand against the desk. His species, the Centauri, had been farmers for thousands of years, but their traditional methods couldn't feed the massive populations that now depended on industrial agriculture. "What about the backup generators? They failed last week. We don't know how to repair them. The human engineers who built them took all the technical manuals when they left." Kexlar looked out the window at the vast growing chambers stretching to the horizon. Each chamber could produce enough food to feed 1 million people. But without power, they were just empty metal boxes. The humans had designed and built this entire facility. They had trained the Centauri workers to operate the equipment but not to maintain it. The aliens had thought maintenance was beneath them. Let the primitive humans do the technical work while advanced species focused on more important things. Now those primitive humans were gone, and the advanced species were starving. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out everywhere. On the mining world of Kepler 186c, the automated extractors had shut down when their human-designed control systems failed. The Hegemony Mining Corporation was losing millions of credits every day. CEO Thornbark received the daily reports in his crystal office, each one worse than the last. His species looked like walking trees, but they had built a mining empire that spanned dozens of star systems. At least they had until 6 months ago. "The Vega 7 operation is completely shut down," his assistant reported. "The mining robots won't respond to any commands." "What about bringing in new equipment?" "Sir, 90% of our mining technology was designed by human engineers. We don't have replacement parts, and our technicians can't figure out how to repair what we have." Thornbark's wooden face creaked with frustration. The humans had offered to teach Hegemony engineers how to maintain the equipment, but Hegemony leadership had refused. Why should they learn from a species that had only been in space for a few centuries? Now they were learning the cost of that arrogance. On the crystal world of Vorthik Prime, the situation was even worse. Prime 7 stood in the center of the planetary control room, watching as his civilization's greatest achievement crumbled around him. The Vorthak were crystalline beings who had turned their entire planet into a giant computer. Every crystal formation was part of a massive information network that could process data from across the galaxy. It was beautiful, elegant, and completely dependent on rare Earth elements that only humans knew how to extract efficiently. "System efficiency is down to 45%, reported Subprime 12. "Without the rare Earth elements to maintain our crystal matrices, we're losing processing power every day. Can we find alternative sources?" "We're trying, but human mining techniques were far more advanced than we realized. Our traditional methods extract maybe 10% of what human operations could produce." Prime 7's crystal body dimmed with despair. The Vorthak had spent thousands of years building their crystal civilization. Now it was slowly dying because they had driven away the only species that knew how to keep it alive. But nowhere were the consequences more obvious than in the shipping lanes between star systems. Captain Histal, a member of the snake-like Salin species, watched nervously as his merchant convoy approached the frontier zone. This region of space had been safe for years under human patrol. Now it was a pirate's paradise. In the past 6 months, over 300 merchant ships had been attacked. Pirates were getting bolder, striking closer to major trade routes. "Contact on sensors," his navigator reported. 3 ships moving to intercept." "Pirates?" "Most likely. Should we call for help?" Histal laughed bitterly. "From who?" "The Galactic Defense Force. They haven't been able to catch a single pirate ship since the humans left." The truth was embarrassing for the older species. They had large fleets and powerful weapons, but they had never learned to fight the way humans did. Human tactics were unpredictable, aggressive, and relentless. Pirates feared human patrols because humans never gave up a chase. The alien fleets were more traditional. They fought set battles with organized formations. Pirates simply avoided them or ran away when confronted. Without human pursuit tactics, the criminals were running wild. "Sir, the pirate ships are demanding we stop and prepare to be boarded." Histal sighed and ordered his ships to surrender. It was better than being destroyed. But as pirates swarmed through his cargo holds, stealing months of profit, he couldn't help but remember how safe these routes used to be. On the capital world of the Dominion, Chancellor Vextar was facing his own crisis. His species had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, but their empire was built on complex trade networks and information systems. Both were collapsing without human support. "The communication blackouts are spreading," his aide reported. 17 sectors have lost contact with the central government. "We don't even know what's happening in large parts of our territory." Vextar stood at the window of his tower, looking out over the capital city. Even here, on the most advanced world in Dominion space, the effects were visible. Public transportation systems were failing. The power grid was unstable. Food distribution was breaking down, all because humans had built or maintained the underlying systems that made modern civilization possible. "Sir, we're receiving reports of civil unrest on 12 worlds. Local governors are declaring independence. Some are even forming their own defense forces." The Dominion was fracturing. Without reliable communication and transportation, the central government couldn't maintain control over distant territories. Local leaders were taking matters into their own hands. "What about the other council species? Are they offering support?" "They're all dealing with their own problems, sir. The hegemony has lost most of their mining capacity. The Vorthak civilization is literally shutting down. The Zentari are facing mass starvation." Vextar turned away from the window. 6 months ago, he had laughed at the human ambassador. He had called her species primitive and unimportant. He had been so confident that the galaxy would be better off without them. Now his empire was collapsing, and he was beginning to understand the terrible truth. Humans hadn't been junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been the foundation that everything else was built on. The younger species had quietly taken over the maintenance, logistics, and security that kept the galaxy running. While the older species focused on politics and philosophy, humans had been doing the real work, and now that work wasn't getting done. "Sir," his aide said quietly, "some of the junior council members are suggesting we try to contact Earth. Perhaps we could negotiate." "No," Vextar snapped. "The Dominion does not beg for help from primitives." But even as he said it, Vextar knew he was lying to himself. The humans weren't primitive. They were dangerous. They had built themselves into the center of galactic civilization so quietly that no one had noticed until they were gone. Now the galaxy was learning what it was like to function without them, and it wasn't functioning at all. Outside his window, another transport system failed, leaving thousands of citizens stranded. In the distance, he could see smoke rising from districts where the power grid had collapsed. The galaxy was unraveling, and Vextar was beginning to suspect that the humans had known this would happen all along. 1 year had passed since Ambassador Chen walked out of the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was burning. Literally. Chancellor Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching laser fire streak between warships in the distance. The Hegemony Mining Corporation had declared war on the Zentari Federation 3 weeks ago, fighting over the few remaining functional agricultural worlds. Both sides were desperate for resources that humans used to help them manage peacefully. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving another distress call from the Outer Rim. The Vorthak Empire is requesting immediate military assistance against pirate fleets." Vextar laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Military assistance? With what ships? Half our fleet is protecting food convoys, and the other half is trying to maintain order in our own territory." The Dominion's mighty armada, once the fear of the galaxy, was stretched impossibly thin. Without human logistics networks to coordinate supply lines, Vextar's ships were constantly running low on fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. Many vessels had been abandoned when they broke down and couldn't be repaired. "Sir, Priority 1 message from the Core World's Defense Council." Vextar accepted the transmission. The holographic image of Admiral Corthex appeared, his insect-like features twisted with exhaustion. "Vextar, we need to talk." The situation is getting worse. Worse than 3 interstellar wars and complete economic collapse? Much worse. Corthex's antennae twitched nervously. We've been monitoring communications from the Sol system border. The humans. They're not just sitting in isolation. Vexitar felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? Long-range sensors have detected massive construction projects on the edge of human space. New shipyards, research facilities, defensive installations. And Vexitar, the technology readings don't match anything in our databases. The Chancellor sat down heavily in his command chair. How advanced are we talking? Our analysts estimate they've advanced their technology by at least 50 years in the past 12 months. Maybe more. Whatever they're building, it's beyond our current understanding. After the transmission ended, Vexitar stared out at the stars. How was that possible? How could any species advance so quickly? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the abandoned human research station on Kepler 438b, a team of Dominion scientists had been trying to reverse engineer human technology. Dr. Zelnath had spent months studying human computer systems, and what she found changed everything. The humans weren't just maintaining our technology, she reported to Vexitar via secure transmission. They were deliberately limiting their own advancement to match galactic standards. What does that mean? It means they've had superior technology all along, sir. But they kept it hidden. Every piece of equipment they built for us was deliberately simplified. They used materials and designs that were decades behind their actual capabilities. Vexitar felt sick. Why would they do that? From what I can determine from their research notes, they wanted to integrate peacefully into galactic society. They thought if they revealed their true technological level, other species might see them as a threat. The irony was devastating. Humans had pretended to be primitive to avoid frightening the galaxy. Instead, the galaxy had treated them as inferiors and driven them away. Now they were discovering what humans were really capable of. Meanwhile, on the edge of Sol system, a small Dominion fleet approached the invisible barrier that surrounded human space. Vexitar had finally swallowed his pride and decided to request a meeting with Earth's government. Deploy the diplomatic beacon, he ordered. Request permission to enter human space for peace negotiations. Captain Torval activated the beacon, broadcasting on all known human frequencies. They waited for a response. It came immediately, but not from where they expected. A voice spoke directly into their bridge communications, bypassing all their security systems entirely. Dominion vessel, you are approaching restricted space. Please state your business. The fact that humans could hack their communications so easily was terrifying. Captain Torval looked to Vexitar for guidance. This is Chancellor Vexitar of the Dominion. I request an audience with Earth's leadership to discuss the current galactic situation. There was a pause. Then please hold your position. A representative will meet with you shortly. Within minutes, a human ship appeared out of nowhere. One moment space was empty. The next moment, a sleek vessel materialized just a few kilometers away. The Dominion ship's sensors hadn't detected anything until it was already there. How did they do that? Captain Torval whispered. The human ship was unlike anything in the galactic database. Its hull seemed to shimmer and shift, making it difficult to focus on. The design was elegant but clearly built for purposes the Dominion couldn't understand. Dominion fleet, follow our ship to the meeting station. Do not deviate from the prescribed course or activate any scanning equipment. Vexitar had no choice but to comply. As they followed the human vessel, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. On his ship's long-range sensors, he could see dozens of similar vessels appearing and disappearing around them. The humans had them completely surrounded, and they hadn't even known it. The meeting station was another shock. It was a massive structure that definitely hadn't been there a year ago. The design was clearly human, but the scale and sophistication were beyond anything humans had built before their withdrawal. Inside the station, Vexitar found himself in a simple conference room, facing a middle-aged human woman in a plain uniform. She looked ordinary, even boring, but her eyes held a confidence that made Vexitar nervous. I'm Admiral Martinez, she said simply. I understand you want to discuss the galactic situation. Admiral, Vexitar began, trying to maintain some dignity. The galaxy is in crisis. Wars, economic collapse, communication breakdowns. We need to find a solution. I see. And what does this have to do with humanity? Vexitar struggled with the words. We may have made some mistakes in our previous negotiations. Admiral Martinez raised an eyebrow. Mistakes? You voted to forcibly relocate 2 million human civilians. You questioned our right to exist as a galactic species. You laughed when our ambassador asked for basic respect. Yes, well, perhaps we acted hastily. Perhaps. Martinez leaned back in her chair. Tell me, Chancellor, how has the galaxy been managing without human participation? Vextar wanted to lie, to claim that everything was fine. But the truth was too obvious. Not well, he admitted. Not well, Martinez repeated. 3 wars, complete infrastructure collapse, and pirate fleets roaming free across half the galaxy. That's not well? We want to make things right, Vextar said desperately. The Galactic Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership with equal voting rights. Martinez laughed. Equal voting rights? Chancellor, I think you're misunderstanding the situation. What do you mean? You seem to think this is a negotiation between equals. But look around you. She gestured to the walls, which suddenly became transparent, showing the view outside. Vextar gasped. The space around the station was filled with human ships. Hundreds of them, all using technology that made his flagship look like a primitive toy. Some were so large they could have carried his entire fleet inside their cargo bays. This is just one small patrol group, Martinez explained. We have thousands more where these came from. Our technology is now approximately 100 years ahead of galactic standards. Our industrial capacity exceeds the combined output of every other species in the galaxy. Vextar stared at the fleet in shock. How is this possible? Turns out humans are pretty good at building things when we're not wasting time being insulted at council meetings, Martinez said with a smile. We've been quite productive this past year, but this means the balance of power has shifted, Chancellor. The galaxy spent a year learning it couldn't function without humans. Now you're about to learn what happens when humans don't need the galaxy at all. Vextar realized with growing horror that humanity hadn't just withdrawn from galactic civilization, they had transcended it. While the rest of the galaxy tore itself apart, humans had been building something new and far more advanced. What do you want? He asked quietly. Admiral Martinez stood up. That's the wrong question, Chancellor. The right question is, what are you prepared to offer us to fix the mess you've made? As Vextar was escorted back to his ship, he knew that the galaxy had made the worst mistake in its history. They had driven away the one species that could have led them to a better future. Now they would have to beg for the privilege of serving that species instead. 18 months after humanity left the talks, Ambassador Sarah Chen walked back into the Galactic Council chamber. But everything had changed. Half the seats were empty now. The proud Hegemony Mining Corporation had collapsed completely, their representatives nowhere to be seen. The crystalline Vorthak Empire had sent only a single delegate instead of their usual dozen. The once mighty Dominion occupied just a few seats near the back. The chamber itself showed signs of decay. Several of the floating platforms had crashed. Their anti-gravity systems failed and unfixable. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows where the elegant illumination systems once worked. The great hall that had symbolized galactic unity now looked like a ruin. Chancellor Vextar sat slumped in his chair, his once proud bearing broken by 18 months of watching his empire crumble. When he saw Sarah enter, his 4 eyes filled with something that might have been relief or terror. Ambassador Chen, he said, his voice hoarse with exhaustion, thank you for coming. Sarah looked around the chamber, noting the empty seats and failing systems. I see you've redecorated, she said dryly. A few nervous laughs echoed through the mostly empty hall. The surviving delegates looked desperate, their species hanging on the edge of extinction or collapse. Perhaps we should begin, suggested Prime 7, the Vorthak delegate. His crystal body was noticeably dimmer than before, lacking the rare elements needed to maintain his species' biocrystalline structure. Sarah took her place at the center of the chamber, but she didn't sit down. Instead, she remained standing, looking up at the alien delegates with calm confidence. Before we start, she said, I want to make sure everyone understands why I'm here. This isn't a negotiation between equals. This is a discussion of terms for humanity's return to galactic affairs. Vextar winced but nodded. We understand. The galaxy has struggled without human participation. Struggled? Sarah raised an eyebrow. Let me summarize what the galaxy has accomplished in the 18 months since you decided you didn't need humans. She pulled out a datapad and began reading. 3 major wars resulting in approximately 40 billion casualties. Complete collapse of the galactic communication network. Economic devastation affecting over 200 worlds. Pirate activity increased by 3,000%. Infrastructure failures on 87% of inhabited planets. The delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Each item on the list represented millions of their people dead or suffering. And that's just the major highlights, Sarah continued. Should I go into detail about the food riots, the refugee crises, or the complete breakdown of interstellar law enforcement? We get the point, Vextar said quietly. Do you? Sarah's voice became sharper. Because 18 months ago, you told me that the galaxy had existed for millions of years before humans, and would exist for millions more after we returned to our caves. She gestured to the empty chamber around them. How's that working out for you? His speaker Salen, one of the few remaining original council members, slithered forward. Ambassador Chen, we acknowledge that we made errors in judgment. We are prepared to offer humanity full council membership with equal voting rights. Sarah laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber, cold and without humor. Equal voting rights? Speaker Salen, I think you're still misunderstanding the situation. She touched her datapad and a holographic display appeared above the chamber. It showed star charts with human territory marked in blue. The aliens gasped at what they saw. These are humanity's current territorial holdings, Sarah explained. As you can see, we've expanded significantly during our absence from galactic politics. The map showed human settlements spreading far beyond the Sol system, establishing colonies in previously unexplored regions of space. Entire sectors that the galactic community didn't even know existed were now marked as human territory. But that's impossible, stammered Prime 7. Long-range exploration takes decades of preparation. Ships, supply lines, terraforming equipment. Only if you use galactic standard technology, Sarah replied. Humans have made some improvements while we've been away. She touched the pad again and the display changed to show comparative technology assessments. The numbers made several delegates gasp in shock. Our industrial capacity now exceeds the combined output of every remaining galactic civilization, Sarah continued. Our military fleet could defeat all your remaining forces without significant losses. Our technology is approximately 150 years ahead of current galactic standards. Vextar slumped further in his chair. How? Turns out that when humans aren't spending time being insulted at council meetings, we're quite productive, Sarah said. We've also discovered that many of the young species you look down on are actually far more advanced than the elder races who claim to be superior. She gestured to the display again. We've made contact with 17 other species that the Galactic Council deemed unworthy of membership. They're all quite innovative when given the chance. The implications hit the delegates immediately. Humanity hadn't just isolated itself. It had built an entirely new galactic community with blacklisted species, a community that was apparently far more advanced than the old one. What do you want from us? Vextar asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a kind expression. Now that's the right question, Chancellor. She began pacing around the chamber's center, her footsteps echoing in the silence. First, reparations. The human colonies you voted to relocate will be restored to their original locations, plus additional territory for expansion. The cost of rebuilding will be borne entirely by the species that voted for their removal. Several delegates started to protest, but Sarah held up her hand. Second, the Galactic Council will be dissolved. In its place we'll establish the Terran Federation Council, with Earth as the permanent senior member. All major decisions will require human approval. You can't just take over galactic government, Salen protested, can't we? Sarah asked. You're welcome to try managing without us for another 18 months. See how many of your civilizations are still functioning by then. The chamber fell silent. They all knew she was right. Third, Sarah continued, all remaining galactic military forces will be placed under human command. We'll restore order to the shipping lanes and deal with the pirate problem you've been unable to handle. And in return, Prime 7 asked, in return we'll fix what you've broken. We'll restore your communication networks, repair your infrastructure, and restart your economic systems. We'll even provide humanitarian aid to worlds facing starvation or medical crises. Relief washed over several delegates' faces, but Sarah wasn't finished. However, this aid comes with conditions. Human safety and security protocols will be implemented on all worlds. Human oversight will be required for any major industrial or military projects, and any species that shows hostility toward humans or our allies will lose access to all support immediately. Vextar looked around at his fellow delegates. He could see the same thought in their faces. They had no choice. Their civilizations were dying, and humans offered the only hope of survival. These terms are, he began. Non-negotiable, Sarah finished. You had your chance to work with us as equals. You chose to treat us as inferiors instead. Now you'll learn what it's like to be the junior partners. She looked around the chamber one more time, taking in the empty seats and broken systems. You wanted to know what the galaxy would look like without humans managing things, she said. Well, now you know. This is what your superior civilizations accomplished when left to their own devices. And if we refuse your terms? Salen asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Sarah's smile became genuinely warm for the first time since entering the chamber. Then you're welcome to continue managing galactic affairs without us. I'm sure you'll do just fine. The silence stretched for long minutes. Finally, Vextar spoke. We accept your terms, Ambassador Chen. The Terran Federation Council will have our full cooperation. Sarah nodded and finally sat down in the chair at the center of the chamber. But it was no longer the petitioner's seat where she had once pleaded for basic respect. Now it was clearly the seat of power. Excellent, she said. Let's begin discussing the new galactic order. As the negotiations began, Sarah couldn't help but think about how different this meeting was from her last one. 18 months ago, these same aliens had laughed at her, dismissed her people, and voted to destroy human colonies. Now they hung on her every word, desperate for any sign that humanity might help them survive. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Sometimes the youngest voice in the room is the most important one to listen to. And sometimes, by the time you realize that, it's too late to apologize. Humanity had left the talks when they were still willing to be partners. Now they were returning as masters of a galaxy that had finally learned to respect them.